A starborn queen gave me 3 wishes. My first one made her fall silent and blush. Asterisk, they called him primitive. Until she saw him naked. Space explorers from the Vari Concordance weren't expecting much from Earth. Another backwater planet, circling an average star, full of loud mammals, wars, and too much water. A simple survey mission. In and out. That's what Dr. Nyari Velson thought too. She was a respected xenobiologist, silver-skinned, graceful, and sharp-minded. She'd scanned hundreds of species across the stars, studied mating behaviors, biological patterns, and genetic mutations. But none had ever made her stop, blink, and stare until now. The crash was minor. A human shuttle had gone down after some kind of atmospheric interference. When Nyari found the survivor, a human male, unconscious, burned but alive, protocol told her to begin biological scans immediately. She activated her wrist scanner, eyes cool and clinical, but then the scan results flashed across her lens and she paused. Her breath caught. Her skin flushed faintly violet, the very version of a blush by the stars. She whispered, barely believing what she saw. It's proportionally improbable. She'd never seen such numbers before. Not in any database, not in any species. It wasn't just the size, though, yes, that was part of it. It was the density, the complexity, the strange mix of hormone surges, even unconscious. This human was alive in ways the Vari had long forgotten. There was something primal about him, raw, and something inside her reacted, deep in her chest and lower, where her logical mind couldn't explain. She glanced around. The other researchers were busy collecting mineral samples. No one noticed her staring. But she couldn't stop. His skin was rougher than Vari. His chest was broad, with scattered hair like a wild animal. His body heat radiated through the cold alien air. Nyari reached out. Just for a moment, her fingers hovered over his arm. Warm, strong, still alive. She pulled back, swallowing hard. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. She requested immediate transport to the medbay and ordered the others to give her privacy to conduct a full examination. Standard protocol, she said. They didn't question her. They couldn't hear the way her voice trembled just slightly. Alone with the human, she ran more scans. Heart rate, blood composition, neural activity, everything was different. Messy, unpredictable, and fascinating. Where the Vari had evolved toward calm efficiency and nearly emotionless intimacy. This creature's biology screamed of heat, touch, sensation. Nyari couldn't stop herself. She sat beside him and watched his chest rise and fall. Every inhale stirred something in her. She felt warm all over. She tried to tell herself it was scientific curiosity. It wasn't when he stirred. Her heart leaped, his eyelids fluttered open. Dark brown eyes locked on hers. "Where am I?" he mumbled, voice low and cracked. She straightened, swallowing her emotions. "You were aboard a Vari medical transport. You crashed. We found you." He blinked slowly. "Are you real or am I dreaming?" "I am real," she said quietly. His gaze moved over her. "You're beautiful," he muttered. That word, beautiful. She had never heard it said with such simple power. Vari compliments were clinical. Genetic fitness, symmetry. Not beauty. She wasn't prepared for how it made her feel. "I am Dr. Nyari Velson," she said, trying to sound professional. "I am studying your biology." "Yeah," he said with a crooked smile. "Hope I passed." Her skin flushed again. She looked away, focusing on her datapad. But his voice lingered in her ears. That warmth, that humor, that strange human charm. She tried to log his stats, but her hands shook slightly. This had never happened before, not with any other species. Not even once. Something about him was waking up parts of her that had been dormant her whole life. She looked at him again. His lips, his chest, that impossibly strange and impressive anatomy. He grinned faintly. "You okay, Doc? You're looking a little purple." She cleared her throat, stood up too quickly and nearly knocked over a tray of instruments. "I must examine your reproductive system further." His eyebrows raised. "Well," he said, voice slow and amused. "Usually I get dinner first." She blinked. "Is that required?" He laughed. The sound sent a tingle up her spine. "No," he said, "but it helps." Nyari turned away, cheeks glowing. She needed time. She needed answers. But one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer considered primitive, at least. Not to her, asterisk. The next morning, Jake Harlan woke up on a padded table that was far too clean and far too bright for comfort. The ceiling shimmered with a soft teal glow. Instruments floated in midair. Something beeped with an odd, chirpy rhythm. He sat up slowly, sore but alive, and then he saw her again. Dr. Nyari Velson stood at the far side of the room, back turned, her silver skin catching the light like polished chrome. Her long braided hair swayed down to her hips. She was studying a holographic projection of his body, well, parts of his body, very specific parts. "Morning," Jake croaked, his voice still rough. Nyari startled. She turned quickly, a little too quickly for a species known for elegance. The hologram flickered off. "You're awake," she said too loudly, then cleared her throat and adjusted her coat. "Excellent. I was just reviewing your data," unhung, Jake said, grinning. "Everything in working order down there." Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, biologically. You are surprisingly robust, especially in certain appendicular regions. He chuckled. Appendicular, never been called that before. She shifted awkwardly, the lavender glow returning to her cheeks. Vari didn't lie, but they also didn't usually stumble over words. He was breaking all kinds of records already. Look, Jake said, leaning back on his elbows. If you want to take another look, just ask. Neri's voice dropped into a formal tone. A defense mechanism, perhaps. Your physiology presents several anomalies. For instance, your cardiovascular output during unconsciousness exceeded what Vari males produce at peak stimulation. You also possess secondary muscle bands in the lower pelvis that no known analog exists. Jake blinked. So what you're saying is, I'm above average. She hesitated. You are statistically extreme. Well, Jake smirked. Thanks. I think she turned to her console, clearly flustered, though her voice remained even. Your recovery is progressing well. However, I would like to perform further tests, blood pressure, neural mapping, and a series of controlled simulations regarding mating behavior. Jake arched a brow. Simulations? Niari didn't turn around. Yes, for science, he chuckled. Lady, you're the first alien I've met, and you're already asking for test drives. Her head snapped toward him. I am not. I mean, it is purely observational. I have no... He held up his hands, laughing. Relax, Doc. I'm just messing with you. She exhaled sharply and turned back to her console. Your species is incredibly irritating. Jake stood up slowly and stretched. Yeah, you'll get used to it. We grow on people, like mold or charm. She glanced back over her shoulder. Are all human males as insufferably confident as you? Only the ones worth keeping, he said, giving her a wink that did it. Her eyes widened just slightly and she turned away again. This time with a small smile she tried and failed to suppress. Over the next few days, Niari and Jake spent more and more time together. At first it was all business. He underwent scans, answered questions about Earth, explained human idioms like third base and Netflix and chill, much to her confusion and fascination. But somewhere between the biological tests and the late-night conversations, the energy between them shifted, became something more. Jake began noticing things. The way Niari's fingers lingered a second too long when applying biogel to his chest, how she leaned in when he spoke, how her pupils dilated when he said her name. She was trying to be professional. She was failing gloriously. One evening, after a long session of cross-species compatibility analysis, which mostly involved her watching him jog shirtless on a treadmill while pretending not to be staring, Jake finally broke the silence. He said, wiping sweat from his brow. Can I ask you something? She looked up from her datapad, trying not to look flustered. Yes. Do Vari ever? I don't know. Date, she repeated. You mean form temporary emotional pair bonds with intent toward biological or recreational intimacy? Jake grinned. That's a very technical way of asking if you want to grab a drink sometime. Niari hesitated. Vari don't consume alcohol. He shrugged. I meant the idea, Niari, spending time not in a lab coat. She stared at him, and then carefully she removed the shimmering medical coat from her shoulders. Beneath it, she wore a simple wrap of metallic fabric that shimmered like a second skin. Jake's grin froze. Her form was lithe, elegant, and unmistakably feminine in ways that were very familiar, and a few that definitely weren't. He swallowed. So, is that a yes? She tilted her head. Yes, but I warn you, human, I am not easily impressed. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. Then I guess I've got work to do. As the lights dimmed and their silhouettes came together in the quiet medbay, the stars outside blinked patiently, ancient and silent witnesses to a first contact that was no longer just scientific. Niari didn't know what came next. All she knew was this: humans were dangerous, especially the ones who made her feel like this. By now, the lab wasn't really a lab anymore. It was a playground of excuses, a warm, glowing place where science had taken a backseat to something far less clinical and far more personal. Dr. Niari Velson still carried her datapad, still wore her uniform, and still called what she was doing research. But her logs had started to wander. Entry 122. Subject exhibits exceptional tissue regeneration. Entry 123. Subject's laughter induces elevated serotonin levels in observer. Further study required. Entry 124. Subject's smell. Unexpectedly ... pleasant, distracting, possibly addictive. Repeat exposure needed. Jake had become her favorite subject, and he knew it. Tell me again why I'm shirtless for this test, Jake asked one morning, lying on a padded table while Niari adjusted a crystal scanner above him for thermal mapping. She said without looking up. I need to study how your skin conducts heat. You said that yesterday. He grinned. Yes. And today I'm confirming the anomaly, she replied, voice cool, but her hands trembled slightly as they hovered just above his abdomen. Jake watched her. Niari, are you nervous? Very. Do not get nervous, she lied, very unconvincingly. He chuckled. Okay, then what's the word for when someone's breathing changes? Cheeks go lavender, and their hands shake when they touch skin. She stiffened. Environmental reaction. Lab temperature is elevated. He grinned. Right, sure. And I'm the Emperor of Mars. Nyari tried to look away, but her eyes landed squarely on his chest again. And lower stars. How does one species end up shaped like this? Jake propped himself up on his elbows. You know, you could just admit you like me. I do not like you. He raised an eyebrow. No, she cleared her throat. Respect your unique physiology, and your persistence, and your ... symmetry. Jake burst out laughing. Symmetry, that's your version of flirting. She paused, then frowned. Was it ineffective? Jake blinked. No, it was perfect. Terrifyingly clinical, but charming in a mad scientist kind of way. Nyari turned away, muttering under her breath. Vari romance is not practiced. It is usually arranged by compatibility score and Nyari. He said gently. You don't have to follow any rules with me. That stopped her for the first time in her life. Someone wasn't asking for her data, her rank, or her credentials. He was just looking at her not as a scientist, not as a superior species, but as a woman. Curious, bold, alive. She turned to face him again. Do all human males touch so casually, speak so openly? Jake gave a lopsided grin. We're a passionate bunch. We talk, we fight, we love hard. Guess that makes us dangerous. Nyari stepped closer. It does. And unpredictable. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she reached out and touched his hand. Skin against skin. Warm, rough, real. Something. Electric pulsed between them. Not literal electricity, but something even more primal. A spark that bypassed science and language entirely. Nyari's breath caught. You are warm. He squeezed her hand gently. You're trembling. I am excited. Jake smiled softly. So am I. Silence. Close charged. And then, a voice over the com interrupted Dr. Velson report to the council chamber. Immediately, Nyari froze. Her expression fell. Jake sat up. Is something wrong? She didn't answer at first. Just stared at the com, her hand still in his. Then she said, They know. Jake blinked. Know what? That I've spent too much time with you, she whispered. They've noticed changes in my biochemistry, in my behavior. They believe it's a contamination. Jake frowned. But, we haven't even, we didn't, I know, she said. But even proximity to certain pheromone triggers can be enough. My biology is shifting, faster than I expected. Jake stood now, face serious. Are you okay? She looked up at him, her eyes uncertain for the first time. No, but I don't want to stop. He took her hand again. Then don't. She smiled, just a flicker. That would be ... highly unprofessional. Good, Jake said, stepping closer, their faces inches apart. Because I'm tired of being your science project. She swallowed. What would you prefer to be? Jake leaned in, voice low, teasing. Your boyfriend. Nyari blinked. That's such a human word. He shrugged. Then invent one for me. She smiled wider this time. I might. They stood like that, hand in hand, secrets between them, and 1,000 rules cracking, under the weight of something far stronger. Something no scanner could measure. Something that deep down Nyari had always feared her people had lost. But now she wasn't so sure, because this human, he was waking up parts of her that had never been touched, not by logic, not by science, but by something infinitely more powerful. Want, and maybe, just maybe, love. The council chamber was cold, not just in temperature but in tone. The air buzzed with silent judgment. 6 Vari elders sat in a semicircle, faces smooth and unreadable, eyes glowing faintly with biolight, and in the middle stood Dr. Nyari. Alone, she'd faced the best minds in the galaxy. Argued policy with planetary leaders, challenged theories centuries old. But this was different, because this time it was personal. You've compromised your objectivity, one of the elders said, voice like still water. You allowed a pre-union species into our inner medical archives, said another. You were exhibiting hormonal instability. That last one stung, like she was malfunctioning, a faulty machine. Nyari straightened her spine. I have maintained all scientific protocols. I collected clean data, followed isolation procedures, and there has been no, she hesitated, no physical contact. A pause, then a soft hum, the very version of skeptical laughter. Yet your hormone levels match very estrus, said the elder in the center. Triggered only once in a lifetime and only by full compatibility. Her mouth went dry. The implications weren't just emotional, they were biological. The odds of a human and earthborn igniting a very heat cycle were practically 0. And yet, Jake had dismissed her with a warning. Complete the study. Send the human back to Earth and purge all lingering influence. Emotion, they said, was a contaminant. Nyari returned to her quarters that night, furious, at the council, at herself, at how hard her hands were shaking when she touched her own skin and still felt the heat of his. Jake found her on the observation deck, curled in a chair, staring out at the stars. He approached slowly. You okay? She didn't look at him. No. He sat beside her, close but careful. They pulled you in, didn't they? Yes. They reviewed my behavior, my readings. They think I've become ... unstable. He snorted. They haven't seen my ex-girlfriend. You're doing fine, she smiled, but it faded fast. They ordered me to distance myself from you. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, that tracks. But I don't want to. Silence. Then she turned to him. Her voice dropped, shaky but firm. Jake, I need to ask you something. Not as a doctor, as just me. He leaned in. Ask anything. Have you felt it too? This pull between us. Something deeper than touch. Something wrong but also right. Jake took her hand gently. Nyari, I've felt it since the second day. When you blushed and said I was symmetrical. She laughed softly, eyes shining. That was me trying to flirt. I know it was adorable. They were close now, really close. Her fingers touched his jaw, tracing the rough line of his stubble. He leaned into it like it grounded him. My people don't touch often, she whispered. Not like this, not for pleasure, not for meaning. Jake brushed his lips against her palm. Then maybe they're missing something. He kissed her. It was slow, not rushed, not desperate. Just the kind of kiss that says, I see you, and you're not alone, and I want this too. Her breath hitched. She didn't know kisses could feel like that, so human, so honest. So honest. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. This is forbidden, he nodded. I know. She pulled him close again. Let's do it anyway. That night, for the first time, Nyari broke protocol. She removed her coat. He held her carefully, respectfully, like she was made of glass and lightning. She reached for him, fingers trembling, not with fear, but want. He kissed down her neck, learning her language, her sighs, her softest sounds. And when they finally came together, it was not like anything her species had prepared her for. Her skin glowed where he touched. Her body responded with ancient rhythms she didn't even know were still coded in her DNA. Every movement felt like a spark across a dry sky. She moaned his name, raw and real. Jake held her like she was the last miracle in the universe. They didn't speak after. They didn't need to. She curled against him, her silver skin shimmering in the low light, chest rising and falling in a rhythm that matched his. And just before she drifted off to sleep, she whispered, they say humans are dangerous. Jake smiled, eyes closed. They're not wrong, because danger didn't always come with weapons or war. Sometimes it came with a smile, a kiss, and a hand that held yours when the rest of the galaxy told you to let go. Nyari woke up before him. The room was still, dim. Only the soft hum of the ship's life support filled the silence, like a lullaby for a woman who hadn't truly rested in years. She lay there, beside him, her silver skin tangled against warm human flesh. Her body still tingled from the night before, not just from what they did, but from what it meant. She turned, slowly. Jake was asleep on his back, one arm flopped above his head, breathing slow and deep. He looked softer like this, less like a soldier, more like the man who'd made her laugh mid-scan, who kissed her like he'd waited lifetimes. Nyari studied his face the way she once studied, alien fossils, like he might disappear if she blinked. He stirred, one eye cracking open. Are you watching me sleep? Dr. Kachi didn't flinch. Scientific curiosity, he smiled, voice raspy. Should I be flattered or alarmed? Both, she said, resting her head against his chest. Your biology keeps surprising me, he smirked. Last night was surprising for me too. A pause. Then he added, you glowed. By the way, that wasn't just me, right? No, she said quietly. That's not normal. Not for my people. He raised an eyebrow. So I broke you. She shook her head, tracing a finger along his collarbone. No, you woke me. Neither of them spoke for a moment. There was too much weight in the air, not bad weight, just real. Jake finally asked, what now? She didn't answer right away. She wanted to, but how do you explain centuries of rules crashing down in a single night? She sat up slowly, clutching the edge of the blanket, or back to him, her shoulders tense. I've changed, she whispered, not just emotionally. My DNA is shifting. My body is reacting to yours on a level we didn't think was possible. Jake blinked. Wait, you mean like a chemical bond? She nodded. Vari females don't pair bond like humans. We don't even get aroused in the same way. It's mostly neural triggers, program deficient. He winced. Sounds romantic. She glanced back, half smiling. It wasn't, not until you. Jake sat up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Is that why you were shaken after? She nodded slowly. I wasn't supposed to be capable of that. And now, I want more. He pressed a kiss to her shoulder, then take it. I can't, she said, voice tight. The council has protocols. Forbidden contact, genetic risk assessments. They'll exile me, or worse, use me as an experiment. Jake's expression turned serious. Then let's run. Her eyes widened. Run, yeah, he said, without hesitation. Leave this ship, leave the Concordance. We find a quiet world, settle down, raise a few silver blue weird little babies. Her mouth fell open. Jake, I mean it. You'd leave Earth, your people. I already did, he said softly. And now I found something better. She turned fully, face inches from his. Are you serious? As a star collapsing. She laughed, one short, shocked burst. It felt good, real. Then something shifted. A flash of worry crossed her face. She pressed her hand to her stomach. He noticed. What's wrong? I don't know yet, she said, eyes wide. But something's different. I feel it here. Jake swallowed hard. You think you're rich shouldn't be possible. She whispered. Vari eggs are inert without neural infusion. Human cells shouldn't trigger it. He nodded, slowly, and yet her eyes met his. And then, all at once, they knew. She was pregnant with something new. Something never seen before. Not human, not VAARI. Both. She looked down at her hands. If the council finds out, they won't, Jake said, because we're leaving. But I don't even know if I can carry it. My body might reject it or mutate, or he took her hands in his. Then we figure it out. Together, she stared at him, eyes wide with fear, hope, and something much deeper. I wasn't supposed to fall in love, she said. He smiled gently. Yeah, well, neither was I. He kissed her then, softly, not like last night, not wild or curious. This kiss was slow, solid, the kind you give someone when you're not just falling, you've already fallen. And out there, beyond the walls of the ship, the stars burned quietly, watching, waiting. Two lives had touched, changed each other, and created something new, something impossible, something beautiful. And for the first time, Nyari didn't feel like a scientist. She felt like a woman, a partner, and she wasn't afraid, not anymore. They didn't leave immediately, not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't want to, but because Nyari needed time. Time to think, time to test, time to hope. Jake understood. He stayed by her side, never pushing, never asking for more than she could give. And every night, they shared a bed. Every morning, they shared silence. The kind of silence that said, we're in this together. Within the hidden medbay on the lower decks, Nyari set up her own equipment away from the others. She tested her blood, her hormone levels, her neural waves. Every scan brought more questions, but one answer kept repeating. She wasn't just changing, she was evolving. Her DNA was rewriting itself, adapting to something inside her. A hybrid cell cluster had formed. Unique, alive, not artificial, not engineered, naturally conceived. Jake's child. She sat back one night, staring at the results, hands shaking. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was a biological impossibility. A first. Jake. She whispered the word like a secret prayer. He entered. Shirt half buttoned, hair still damp from a sonic shower. I felt your heartbeat change, he said. Is it time? She turned the display toward him. He looked at it, confused at first, then slowly, realization spread across his face like sunrise. That's. She nodded. Yes. There, floating on the screen in soft pulses of light, was a single embryo, silver and pink, spinning slowly in a protective field of cells that shimmered like stardust. Our child, she whispered. Jake didn't speak. Couldn't he just stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and held her while she trembled? I didn't think I could love you more than I already did, he said quietly. I was wrong. She closed her eyes. If they find out, they'll come for me. Then we disappear, he said. I'm not just carrying a child, she added. I'm carrying proof that our two species can be more together. Jake's jaw tightened, which is why they'll want to control it. She nodded, or destroy it. They didn't sleep that night. Instead, they planned, mapped a route through unregulated space, found an old supply ship with a warp core still intact. Jake rewired the engines with bare hands, and old Earth tricks that baffled Nairi's high-tech brain. You're full of surprises, she said, watching him spark wires together with a grin. I'm full of duct tape and bad ideas, he replied. Apparently, that's enough, Nyari smirked. Humans are terrifying, sexy terrifying, he added. Occasionally, they launched 2 days later, cloaked, unregistered and silent, and not a moment too soon, because the very next morning, Nyari's former research lab was sealed off. Council agents began questioning her colleagues, and a new order went out across the ship. Detain the human. Dr. Velson is under investigation. Extreme caution. Suspected emotional contamination and genetic compromise. But by then they were already gone. They flew toward the edges of known space to a quiet, uninhabited moon orbiting a twin star system. No sensors, no scanners, no visitors. Just quiet wind, silver blue grass and peace. They built a home from scavenged panels and old colony tech. Nothing fancy, just walls, warmth, and windows to the stars. It was there, beneath two suns, that Nyari learned to laugh without measuring her breath. It was there that Jake learned to hold her close without fear that she'd vanish when the alarm sounded, and it was there that her belly began to grow slowly. Naturally, the child growing inside her was no longer theory. It kicked one morning, just once, just enough. She gasped, pressing Jake's hand to her stomach. He felt it, and for the first time in his life, the fearless Earthborn soldier nearly cried. You okay? She asked, blinking at him. He nodded. Yeah, it's just I never thought this was part of my story. She tilted her head. What was your story, before me? He shrugged. Survive, serve, die, hopefully remembered. Nothing special. She kissed him soft and sure. You were never meant to be forgotten. She said, but you were meant to change things. They stood like that, bathed in alien light, one heartbeat pulsing inside the other. And in that moment, they both knew the child growing inside Nyari wasn't just a miracle, it was a beginning for her, people for his, for or whatever came next. and it would be protected with everything they had, because they weren't just lovers anymore. They were parents to the galaxy's first. Real proof that love could rewrite evolution. The baby arrived during a storm. Twin suns hidden behind thunderclouds, purple lightning across the sky, wind howling through the trees like a chorus of old gods. It was violent, wild, beautiful. Just like her, Nyari screamed, not in fear, but in power. Her body trembled, glowing with pulses of violet light. Jake held her hand, sweat on his brow, whispering every comforting word he could remember, even the stupid ones. "You're doing amazing. You're terrifying. You're glowing again. I love you. I love you. I love you. Okay, don't crush my fingers." She didn't hear him. Not really. She was too deep inside the moment, too far into something primal and sacred, something Novari had experienced in living memory. Birth. Not engineered, not artificial, real. And when the final cry broke through the air, tiny, powerful, alive, Nyari collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted and radiant. Her silver skin shimmered in waves, her breathing slowed, her hands shook. Jake blinked at the tiny being in his arms. "Holy hell," he whispered. "She's got your eyes." Nyari turned her head, barely able to move, but smiled weakly. "And your nose." Poor thing, the baby was small, skin like pale moonlight with a soft iridescent shimmer, little tufts of black hair on her head, and wide, curious eyes, violet with flecks of gold. A quiet hum radiated from her chest. Her heartbeat pulsed in a rhythm neither entirely human nor VAARI. She was perfect. Jake handed her gently to Nyari, who cradled her like she'd been born for this one moment. "What should we name her?" he asked softly, kneeling beside them. Nyari didn't hesitate. Sierra, he smiled. "Means anything." In Old Var, Nyari whispered, eyes full. "It means first light." Sierra cooed softly, little fingers wrapping around her mother's thumb. She blinked up at them, completely unaware that her very existence had rewritten to species' understanding of life. That night, when the storm finally broke and the sky cleared, the stars came out in full. Jake sat outside their home, wrapped in a blanket, staring up. Naya, I joined him, baby Sarah, in her arms. She sat beside him, leaning into his side. Neither of them said anything for a long time. Because what could you say? They were fugitives, exiles, scientists turned rebels, lovers turned parents, and they were happy. "I keep thinking," Jake murmured, "if Earth ever finds out, if the Vari send ships after us, we might have to run again." Nyari looked down at the tiny child in her arms. "No," she said firmly, "not this time. We're done running." Jake looked at her, surprised. She continued, "We don't hide miracles, Jake. We raise them. We teach them. We let them shine." Sarah gurgled a small, defiant sound like she agreed. Jake grinned. "I like her already. She's going to change everything," Nyari whispered. "And she would. Not immediately. Not tomorrow, but someday." Sarah Valharlan would step into the galaxy, tall and bright and unafraid. The child of two worlds, the proof that love could cross stars, bloodlines, and centuries of silence. But for now, she was just a baby, and they were just a family. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Nyari curled beside him, Sierra sleeping in a small pod of warm light by their side. Jake stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Hey," Nyari hummed, eyes closed. You think we're the only ones?" She opened one eye. "You mean like us, a human and a Vari?" "Yeah," she smiled, slow and sleepy. "Not anymore." Outside, under a sky full of stars, their home glowed softly. No flags, no borders, just laughter, light, and love. And far, far above, in the cold halls of the Vari Concordance, whispers began to spread. Of a scientist who broke the rules, of a human who stole her heart, and of a child, the first light, who just might save them all. End.